This is Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. The voters have spoken. The results are in, most of them anyway, and now comes the analysis of what happened and why. We're very pleased to be joined now by Republican political strategist and former White House counselor for George W. Bush, Ed Gillespie. He worked for 10 years as a top aide to then House Majority Leader Dick Armey and was a principal drafter of the 1994 Contract with America. He also served as RNC chairman, and now he serves as chairman of the Republican State Leadership Committee. Welcome to Newsmax again, sir.
Great to be back. Thank you.
Big victory for Republicans in the House and the new presumptive Majority Leader, John Boehner. What's your take on the results?
Well, I think John Boehner will be a great Speaker of the House. He's someone who has a clear agenda to try to create jobs in this country, to put a check on the reckless, out-of-control spending and government intervention of the Obama administration, to repeal and replace the Obamacare health care reform bill that has had such an adverse effect on Americans, and also to make the House more transparent, to allow people time to look at bills before they vote on them. So I think he'll be great as the new Speaker, and was glad to see him ascend to that position essentially last night.
Are you happy with a number of Republican pickups in the House?
You're very happy with them. There's still some counting going on, but a big enough majority, I think, to be able to govern effectively and to move an agenda on and off the House floor. And then the question becomes what happens in the Senate, where obviously we've made gains but not able to get control.
Ed, what do you think the election results say about President Obama's agenda?
I think it says that they overreached, that the American public, many of the people who voted for Republicans yesterday for Congress had voted for President Obama in 2008, but they were not voting to change America. They thought they were voting to change Washington. And then President Obama came in with this Democratic majority in the House and the Senate, the Pelosi-Reid Congress, and they tried to change America, to move us away from a free enterprise system where millions of Americans every day make decisions in their private lives about what's best for them, and replace that with a more command and control economy, a centralized economy where bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. make decisions for those millions of Americans, a handful of bureaucrats. That's not what the American people wanted when they voted in 2008, and they made that very clear yesterday that they want to put a stop to this huge government intervention in our economy and all the debt and the spending and shifting of resources out of the private sector and into government hands.
Got to be a bit disappointing in the Senate, though. All signs indicated that Majority Leader Harry Reid was on his way out. How does he snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, do you think?
Well, statewide races, senators in particular, are better able to withstand a wave election like we had last night. They're able to fight through the tide in a way that House candidates often can't. House candidates get dragged down with the, in the undertow. But Senate candidates are able to do that. Harry Reid has a lot of machinery in Nevada that kicked into gear. And at the end of the day, that can make a difference in a close race. How big of a factor were unions in his reelection? I think they were a very big factor in his reelection, as well as, they were a big factor. Unions, the biggest spender among outside groups in this election cycle was the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, government employee unions. They spent $87.5 million funneling taxpayer money into campaigns, including Harry Reid's and dozens of others around the country, to try to preserve the public sector, and to make sure that the candidates they fund will in turn fund them and give them raises and expand the size and scope of their workforce, so that then the candidates can get more of their compulsory union dues to go into their election coffers. Talk about a campaign finance scandal. That is unbelievable.
California re-elects one of the most liberal senators and governors, Boxer and Brown. Has that state become hopeless for Republicans, or did Fiorina and Whitman run lousy campaigns, as Michael Reagan told us?
Well, I think that Fiorina and Whitman ran strong, but it is a very tough state. And we may win a statewide race there in terms of the Attorney General. We'll see. I'm optimistic about that. But California is and has been for some time a pretty reliably blue Democrat state, and it showed itself to be that again last night.
The Washington State Senate race still too close to call as we record this interview. What do you think are Dino Rossi's chances of beating incumbent Democrat Patty Murray?
Very good. That was my pick for a surprise outcome going into yesterday. The public polls had her, ahead, but I felt that there was something going on the ground in Washington State, and that Dino Rossi is a very strong candidate, and Patty Murray doesn't have much to show for her time in the Senate on behalf of the people of Washington State. So I think at the end of the day, when all those votes are counted, Dino Rossi can end up being the next senator from Washington State, and that would be a good thing for the country.
Pennsylvania Senate, very close race, but Republican Pat Toomey beats Representative Joe Sestak. How significant is that, and does it signal any kind of trend?
Well, I think it's very significant, and it does signal a trend certainly in Pennsylvania, and I would say all along the Great Lakes, actually. If you look, we won the Senate seat there with the election of Toomey, but Corbett won the governorship. The same next door in Ohio, where we won, Kasich won the governorship, and Rob Portman won the Senate seat. In Indiana, we won the Senate seat. In Michigan, we won the governorship, the State House, and the State Senate. In Wisconsin, we won the governorship, the State House, and the State Senate, and a U.S. Senate seat as well. So it does portend a trend, I believe, especially along the Great Lakes, and Pennsylvania is a kind of a leading indicator of what's going on in that part of the country.
The fact the Senate remains under Democrat control, does that mean Obama will be able to have more liberal judges confirmed?
Well, it certainly makes it more likely than if we had a Republican chairman of the Judiciary Committee and Republicans scheduling the floor, a Republican leader scheduling the floor of the Senate for votes. So, yeah, I think it does make it easier for him to get liberal judges confirmed, but not necessarily easy. I think if you look at some of the Democrats who are left, or even a Democrat like Joe Manchin, who ran against Obama essentially, largely ran as a Republican in West Virginia in order to win. There may be enough votes in the Senate to block liberal judges from confirmation.
Politico points out that the state victories for Republicans are very significant when it comes to redistricting and so forth. Give us your take on that, please.
Well, we had a huge night on the State House and State Senate front. I mentioned a couple of these states along the Great Lakes, but everywhere, Alabama, the State House and the State Senate, Maine and Washington State, huge flips of chambers. So probably 17 so far chambers that have switched hands from Democratic to Republican. I think there are more that are going to come in. There's some votes still being counted out there in these State House and State Senate seats, and that's going to have a big impact on redistricting, which will have a big impact on the composition of Congress for a decade. In fact, in New York State, we elected last night 5 U.S. House representatives from New York State, a net gain of 5 seats in the U.S. House. We're trying to win the New York State Senate. It's going to be very, very close, and if we can win the New York State Senate, or even tie it for that matter, those 5 freshman Republicans who just got elected last night won't be immediately carved out of their seats through the redistricting process. So very, very important, the State House and Senate chambers in terms of redistricting, but just as importantly, very important in terms of people's quality of life in their states. Having a Republican with the gavel for the tax writing committee in a state is as important as having a Republican with the gavel in a tax writing committee in Congress, because people's state taxes don't need to go up any more than they are. In fact, they should come down in most cases. And so it's very important in terms of our jobs and our economy in our states, and our roads and our schools, and the values of our homes. So that's a very big night for my organization, the Republican State Leadership Committee. We were proud to have played a part in helping to foster those wins across the country yesterday.
There's been talk about what the lame duck Congress might try to pull. For example, Harry Reid has talked about ramming the so-called DREAM Act through, which is amnesty for illegal aliens in a different form. Then there's cap and trade again. Are you worried about these things happening, or do you think Republicans can and will stop them?
I think Republicans are going to be in a strong position to stop them. First of all, like I said, even though they elected a Democrat in West Virginia, he ran strongly against cap and trade and said he would oppose it. So, and he'll be seated immediately. Joe Manchin, as will Mark Kirk, will be seated immediately, and hopefully Ken Buck in Colorado, because they're replacing appointed senators, and that'll have a pretty big impact, immediately in terms of the composition of the United States Senate, even in the lame duck, possibly. And I don't think many of the Democrats who saw what happened, yesterday and saw that tide are anxious, especially all those Democrats who got defeated in the U.S. House, to come back to a lame duck session of Congress and say, before we leave, we're gonna try and pass some more controversial bills that the American people just don't want. I suspect that the lame duck session of Congress is pretty limited, hopefully to extending all of the Bush tax cuts so we can get some jobs going again and economic growth and some certainty for employers about what their taxes are going to be on January 1, 2011, and probably extend a continuing resolution for the funding of the government out through maybe March or so. And then they'll go home and a new Congress will be able to come in January with a Republican majority in the House and get their hands around all this reckless federal spending and rein it in.
Lots of stuff ahead to watch. Ed Gillespie, thanks so much as always. We appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.